seed from which all outward conditions grow. This is the law of mind action. What you hold in consciousness will appear in your experience. The one thought that has the power to change your life forever is the realization that God is your unfailing source. It is not merely an idea to be repeated without conviction, but a deep, unshakable knowing that the infinite intelligence which created you also sustains you in every moment, without gap, without limitation, without failure. When this truth is grasped in its fullness, the chains of fear, doubt, and worry fall away. You no longer wonder how things will come, for you know the how is God's domain, and the what is already complete in spirit. Every appearance of lack or trouble begins in the mind as a seed of false belief. People believe they are dependent upon employers, markets, governments, or other people for their livelihood and well-being. But these are only channels through which supply flows, never the source itself. When you think the thought that God alone is your supply, you lift yourself out of the realm of chance and into the realm of certainty. You begin to see that the world cannot take away what it never gave you. A paycheck may end, a business may close, a relationship may shift, but the source remains untouched and eternal, and from that source, new channels open without delay. This one thought acts like a light switched on in a dark room. Suddenly all the shapes and forms you once feared are revealed for what they are, temporary shadows, powerless to harm you. You realize that the substance of your life is spiritual, not material. Spirit cannot be diminished, delayed, or destroyed, and when you align your mind with spirit, you inherit those same qualities in your affairs. The moment fear arises, you answer it with this thought: God is my unfailing source. It is a fortress thought, an impregnable shield that no appearance of lack can penetrate. You begin to live from a new center of calm assurance. If an unexpected expense appears, you do not tremble. You declare that the same power that created the heavens and the earth can easily meet this need. If an opportunity seems lost, you affirm that divine order brings something greater. The outer world begins to conform to your new inner stance, for life is but a mirror, reflecting back the thoughts and feelings you project. There is a quickening in your spirit when you hold this thought steadily. You start to see proofs of it everywhere: unexpected income, solutions arriving before you even ask, people showing up to help in perfect timing. What the world calls coincidence is simply divine supply made visible. The law is exact, as within, so without. The one thought held with faith becomes the mold into which infinite supply flows. In this consciousness, you no longer plead or strive. You command with authority, knowing that what you speak in alignment with truth must manifest. You cease to chase after things and instead draw them to you, for you have anchored yourself in the inexhaustible storehouse of the universe. Every time you affirm God as my unfailing source, you are planting a seed of divine certainty that will break through the soil of appearances and bear the fruit of abundance in due season. The mind that lives in this truth is never empty-handed, for it walks with the key that opens every door and the light that dispels every shadow. God is the source. Channels are many. This is the law that removes all fear and insecurity about supply. To see God as the only source is to place your trust in the eternal, the unchanging, and the limitless. All good that flows to you, money, opportunities, ideas, love, comes from this one source, though it may appear through countless different channels. People, jobs, investments, and circumstances are simply instruments, temporary pathways through which divine supply moves. When one channel closes, the supply has not ended. It simply finds a new way to reach you. The river may change its course, but the ocean from which it draws is still full. Most people cling to one channel as if it were the source itself, fearing that without it, they will be lost. This is why they panic at the loss of a job, the end of a business deal, or the departure of a benefactor. They believe the flow has been cut off. But this is only an illusion born of a limited understanding. The truth is that the same God who provided through that channel is capable of providing through another, often in ways far greater than before. To realize this is to become free from dependency on any single outer thing. When you rest in the knowledge that your supply is spiritual, you can watch the outer changes without fear, knowing that the source remains untouched. If a door closes, you bless it and declare, a better channel is now opening. This is not wishful thinking but a spiritual fact, for divine supply is as constant as the sun's light, and your recognition of it is what keeps the flow unbroken. You become like a tree whose roots are deep in the unseen waters. Storms may shake its branches, but the life force remains steady and abundant. This understanding also keeps you from idolizing the channel. You do not place people on pedestals or cling to them out of fear of losing their favor. You see them for what they are, willing instruments through which God's good is presently flowing. You can appreciate them without giving away your power. You can love them without binding them. And if they leave, you release them in peace, for your supply was never dependent on their presence. Opportunities, too, are endless when you see God as the source. You stop limiting yourself to the obvious or familiar. A single idea, divinely inspired, can create a channel you never imagined. An introduction, a chance encounter, a sudden flash of insight that leads to a breakthrough. These are not accidents, but the natural outworking of divine law when you are attuned to it. You begin to expect good from every direction, knowing that God is not bound by the same narrow limits that human reasoning imposes. Fear fades when you trust the source more than the channel. You no longer wake in the night wondering what will happen if this person says no, or that deal falls through, or that job disappears. You stand on the truth. My supply comes from God, and no one can take it from me. You become a calm observer of life's changes rather than a frantic participant, because you know that the stream of good can never truly dry up. By holding this thought, you keep the channels open and invite new ones to form. You stop clinging to the old and welcome the new with gratitude. The law of supply responds to a receptive, trusting mind, and such a mind can never be left without provision. God is the source, channels are many, and the one who knows this walks through life free from fear, rich in faith, and open to blessings without. And every fearful thought is a seed planted in the soil of the subconscious, and if left unchallenged, it will grow into an outward condition that mirrors that fear. The great work is to uproot these false seeds and replace them with seeds of truth. This is not a matter of ignoring appearances, but of refusing to accept them as final or as the voice of reality. Fear is always a messenger from the false self, whispering that you are alone, unsupported, and at the mercy of circumstances. Truth, on the other hand, declares that divine order governs all, and that nothing contrary to God's law has any real power over you. When fear arises, it is a signal to immediately take up the sword of the spoken word. The mind left unguarded will dwell on the fearful image until it becomes impressed upon the subconscious, drawing to you more evidence of that very fear. But the mind that is trained in truth will instantly reject the lie and replace it with an affirmation such as, "This situation cannot stay. It is not of God, and I do not accept it." In speaking these words with faith, you are not struggling with the problem. You are erasing it at its root in consciousness. Truth has a higher vibration than fear, and when spoken with conviction, it overrides the lower. You may not see an immediate outward shift, but in the unseen, the old pattern is already dissolving and the new is forming. The law is precise. What you affirm with belief is impressed upon the subconscious and then expressed in your outer world. It is therefore not enough to casually think of truth now and then. It must be your continual replacement for every suggestion of fear. This practice is not denial in the shallow sense of pretending a problem does not exist. It is a spiritual denial, which means you refuse to give power or permanence to anything that is not in harmony with God. You may acknowledge that a storm is passing through, but you declare that it has no power to uproot you, for you are rooted in divine law. You are simply taking the appearance and holding it up to the light of truth until the shadow dissolves. Fear thrives in silence, in those moments when it is allowed to repeat its story unchecked. Speaking truth out loud is an act of authority. It breaks the hypnotic hold of fear and reminds both your conscious and subconscious mind of the real order of things. Each time you do this, you are building a stronger habit of turning instantly to truth. Over time, fear finds less and less foothold in your mind, for it meets the closed door of a consciousness that will not host it. Even in the most pressing situations, you have the power to choose your inner response. The world may be shouting reasons to worry, but you have the right to choose a higher thought. Each replacement of fear with truth strengthens your spiritual backbone. until you find yourself unshaken by what once would have overwhelmed you. The outer world must eventually mirror this inner stability, bringing conditions of harmony and provision where there was once confusion and lack. When you understand that fear is nothing more than faith in the wrong direction, you realize how vital it is to reverse it immediately. Replacing fear with truth is not simply positive thinking. It is the conscious alignment of your mind with divine law. And divine law, once recognized and affirmed, cannot fail to bring forth order, peace, and supply in perfect form and perfect timing. The game of life is not won by chance or by the strength of human effort alone. It is won by the unwavering application of faith. Words are not empty sounds. They are creative instruments, shaping the unseen substance of life into visible form. Florence Scovel Shinn called them your wand, for with them you direct the energy of spirit. When your words are filled with faith, they are charged with the very power of creation. When they are spoken in doubt, they scatter your energy and delay your good. The difference lies not in the sound of the words, but in the belief that stands behind them. Faith is the great activator of the spoken word. Without faith, an affirmation is like a seed thrown on barren ground. With faith, it is like a seed planted in fertile soil, destined to bear fruit in its own season. This is why a simple phrase, spoken with conviction, can accomplish what long hours of worry and struggle never could. Faith aligns you with divine law, and divine law always responds in kind. When you speak from this place of certainty, you are not asking for your good, you are declaring it into form. The game of life is played with invisible rules, and one of the highest is that like attracts like. The vibration of faith attracts conditions that match it, just as the vibration of fear attracts its own kind. Your words are the carriers of that vibration. Every statement you make is a command to the subconscious, and the subconscious will always act to fulfill it, without judgment of whether it serves you well or ill. This is why idle, fearful talk is so dangerous. It instructs the creative forces of life to bring you more of what you do not want. When you choose to speak only words that agree with the good you desire, you become a conscious player in the game. You stop describing the situation as it is and begin declaring it as you wish it to be, knowing that the unseen is more real than the seen. If lack appears, you speak abundance. If confusion appears, you speak clarity. If illness appears, you speak health. You do not deny the appearance exists. You simply refuse to make it your reality by giving it your faith. Faith-filled speech is not boastful or loud. It is calm, steady, and sure. It may be no more than a whisper, but it carries the weight of spiritual authority. When Jesus said to the storm, "Peace, be still," he was not hoping the waves would obey. He knew they must, for he spoke in alignment with divine power. The same principle applies to every area of life. When you speak with faith, your words carry a command that the outer world cannot ignore. This is why the game of life is not about outthinking others or outworking them. It is about outbelieving the appearances and holding to truth until it becomes visible. Faith sees beyond the present moment into the eternal reality where all good already exists. Words are the bridge that carry that good into manifestation. If you guard your speech and fuel it with faith, you hold the winning strategy in every circumstance. You are no longer a pawn of conditions but a master of them, directing the pieces of your life into place with the quiet, unstoppable power of the spoken word. Every moment of life presents a choice between two inner postures, one of abundance or one of lack. This choice is made not in the bank account, nor in the marketplace, but in the mind. When you hold the thought, "God is my source," you automatically position yourself in the current of abundance. You align with a truth that transcends appearances, a truth that says there is more than enough for every need and desire. Lack, on the other hand, is not an objective condition but a state of consciousness, a belief in separation from the infinite supply. The world often trains the mind to see limitation first, to measure resources, to weigh odds, to expect shortage. This conditioning makes people grasp at what they have and fear that it will run out. But the one who lives in the thought, "God is my source," knows that what is seen is only a fragment of what is available. The visible is temporary, the invisible is inexhaustible. This knowing allows you to release the fear of loss, for you understand that the same power that brought you what you now have can bring more, in ways both expected and unexpected. Choosing abundance over lack begins with refusing to entertain thoughts that contradict divine supply. You may acknowledge the outer condition, but you do not give it the final say. If a bill arrives, you affirm, "This is easily paid through divine provision." If an opportunity appears to vanish, you declare, "Something better is already on its way." These are not empty words, they are acts of spiritual alignment. Each affirmation is a decision to side with truth rather than with fear. When you choose abundance, you become more generous, for you no longer believe that giving diminishes you. You give knowing that the supply is infinite, and that whatever you release returns multiplied. Generosity becomes a natural extension of your faith, and life responds in kind, opening new channels of blessing. Lack thinking, by contrast, breeds withholding and scarcity, which only reinforces the very condition it fears. The law of mind is exact. You receive according to the measure of your belief, and belief is made visible in your actions. Choosing abundance also changes how you interpret delays or detours. Instead of seeing them as proof of failure, you see them as divine timing at work. You do not panic when something takes longer than expected, because you know that God's supply is never late, and that what is yours cannot be taken from you. This patience keeps your vibration high and your channels open, while impatience and anxiety tend to close them. Over time, the choice for abundance becomes a habit. It no longer requires effort to reject thoughts of limitation. You simply do not recognize them as belonging to you. Your speech reflects your choice. You talk about possibilities rather than problems, blessings rather than burdens. The people around you notice the difference, and often they begin to experience more abundance themselves simply by being in your presence. Consciousness is contagious, and a mind steeped in truth has a way of uplifting others. The transformation is not only in material supply, but in the quality of life itself. You feel lighter, freer, more at peace. You walk into situations expecting favor, and that expectation tends to fulfill itself. You attract opportunities because your energy signals readiness to receive. By holding fast to the thought, "God is my source," you continually choose abundance, and in doing so, you create a life where lack has no foothold and blessings flow without end. To demonstrate the goodness of God is to live as a visible expression of divine supply, love, and order. Life is not meant to be a struggle or a series of tests, but a stage upon which the abundant nature of spirit can be revealed through you. When you align your thoughts, words, and actions with the truth that God is the source of all good, you become a living testimony to that law. People do not merely hear your words, they observe your life, and it speaks volumes about the power and reliability of divine supply. Demonstrating the goodness of God begins with a conscious recognition that nothing outside of God can limit or diminish your life. Many people live in fear because they look to circumstances rather than to the eternal source. They attempt to validate the goodness of life through appearances, and when appearances seem unfavorable, they despair. But when you demonstrate the goodness of God, you do not rely on appearances to determine your sense of security or worth. You stand on the invisible law, knowing that every seeming obstacle is only temporary, and that the infinite supply of spirit cannot be exhausted. This consciousness allows you to act with confidence, knowing that divine guidance and provision are always present, whether or not the outer world seems to confirm it. To show God's goodness is also to speak words of faith and encouragement. Words are instruments of creation, and by consistently affirming truth, you invite others to witness the abundance that flows from a life lived in alignment with divine law. You might say, "All my needs are met in perfect order," or "Divine supply flows to everyone who trusts in God." These statements are not only self-affirmations, they ripple outward, touching the minds and hearts of those who hear them, offering a glimpse of the limitless nature of spirit. Action is equally important in demonstrating divine goodness. When opportunities arise to assist, uplift, or bless others, you act not out of obligation, but from a recognition that the source of all good is unlimited and always available. Giving becomes an expression of faith, a demonstration that you trust the supply is eternal. In doing so, you reinforce the law within yourself, and you show those around you that abundance is not only possible but natural. Generosity and helpfulness are not mere moral duties, they are spiritual demonstrations that open channels for even greater flow. Demonstrating the goodness of God also requires maintaining an inner attitude of gratitude. Gratitude shifts the mind from lack to recognition of the constant supply already present. Even in challenging situations, you acknowledge the hidden blessings and see evidence of divine care. This practice strengthens your faith and inspires confidence in others, for people are drawn to those who live in the calm assurance of supply, rather than in fear and worry. Your life becomes a mirror reflecting the stability, order, and richness of the spiritual laws at work. Furthermore, to live as a demonstration of divine goodness is to walk in integrity and consistency. Your thoughts, words, and actions align with the truth you profess. You do not waver between fear and faith, nor between doubt and belief. The world observes and often responds to consistency. It recognizes the power in a life unshaken by appearances. By holding steadfast to truth, you radiate authority, and your very presence becomes proof that God's goodness is active and dependable. As you cultivate this consciousness, miracles become commonplace, not as random events, but as natural outcomes of alignment with divine law. Doors open, solutions appear, and favor flows where it is needed. Your life becomes a testament, silently instructing others that the infinite source is real, reliable, and always accessible. In demonstrating the goodness of God, you invite the world to see what faith, alignment, and truth can accomplish in every sphere of life.